Hello, it's Jamie. This is Live with Bottleneck, where we help stop the bottleneck in your business. But that's not really what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking to Garrett Rokosh, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about what you can expect here. As soon as we get through this amazing intro, a wonderful magic Mike did for us, Mike D, our video editor. So we'll be back in about 38 seconds. Hello, my name is Jamie J. Welcome to Live with Bottleneck, where we help stop the bottleneck in your business. I'm the owner and founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, and where we assist business leaders to kind of help them stop doing the wrong things and focus on doing their best work. You can learn more by going to bottleneck.online, schedule a consultation with us. And that being said, that is not the main reason here today. The main reason we are here today is because we're going to be talking with Garrett Rokosh. He's the managing partner of Social Architect. And the basis of our conversation today is creating human connection and psychological safety in remote work. This is a big deal for me, and I hope it's going to be a big deal for you. If you have any questions or comments throughout our live conversation, ask away. If you're watching this later, then you can put a question or comment in the comment section there, and I will make sure to get that to Garrett. But how can Garrett help stop the bottleneck in your business? Garrett is a managing partner of Conscious Leadership Coach and Workshop Facilitator at Social Architect. And as a coach and facilitator, he challenges distributed teams, distributed meaning remote-based teams, to attain extraordinary levels of candor, psychological safety, and social connectedness. Based in Victoria, Canada, where he's not today, he's joining us all the way from Nicaragua. His work is driven by the belief that safe connection will make the business the most powerful force for good in the world. His mission is to build a more safely connected, distributed workforce. I absolutely love that. Without any further ado, please allow me to introduce you to Garrett. How are you, sir?
Hey, Jamie. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Yeah, feeling excited. I feel these like warm tightness in my belly and my chest. My breathing feels a little shorter. That's usually a sign that I'm feeling nervous. And,
oh boy.
Yeah, nervous and excitement show up for me in very similar ways. But yeah, really grateful to be here.
I'm super stoked to have you, man. This is really, really cool. And thank you for taking time out. I know you're doing some special work there in Nicaragua. So you've been dealing with all kinds of different thought processes today, but thank you so much for joining us. And I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about what you do. So for those of you that may not know who you are, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I want people to know about me is that my mission is to create a more safely connected, distributed workforce. And by safely connected, what I mean is increasing psychological safety and increasing human connection. And to us at Social Architect, safe connection is the fusion between psychological safety, meaning that people will just feel safe to be themselves, feel safe to be honest at work, feel safe to express their authentic self, give critical feedback, and all of that fused together with human connection and feeling a strong sense of familiarity, trust, and like meaningful relationship and connection with your team. And focusing all of that on distributed work in this belief that the future of work is distributed. And yeah, everything that Social Architect is about is about increasing and maximizing safe connection. And a lot of one of the main things that we do is called social connection games, which is the best team building solution available for remote work. And all of these social connection games are built from a practice called authentic relating games. And most of my background, like most of everything I've learned about facilitating group spaces in service of intimacy and human connection, comes from a practice called authentic relating. So I hope that in this call that I can share a little bit of the practices and wisdom behind authentic relating that I've been bringing into remote work, and so far seems to really be exploding. And yeah, that's a little bit.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, because we got connected a couple months back, and I was really intrigued by what it was you were doing. Obviously, being a 100% remote workforce here, it was very fascinating to me. And so many people, I think there's Gartner research that came out and said 44% of all people that have been working remotely now want to stay working remotely when we kind of go back to this new world, I guess we're saying. And I agree with you. The future workplace is at a very minimum a hybrid model, meaning part-time in the office, part-time working remotely. And some of the challenges that we've had that I've seen working remotely, and I've been working remotely for 15 years, so I kind of get it. But some of the challenges is isolation and people not feeling like they're part of something, bigger. And so, having to deal with distractions at home versus in the office. And there's distractions in the office too, mind you. But for the percentage of us, or a large percentage of the people that are going to be remaining remote, which I believe, like you said, is the future workplace, there's some things that you can do to help them. I wonder if maybe you can talk to that a little bit, as far as those people that are working remotely. How do you help them feel more part of a team, or part of something bigger, part of that vision?
Yeah, so the first thing that I usually share with leaders and anyone interested in this very common question that I get asked of, how do we increase human connection with our virtual team? And there's this model called the 3 levels of conversation, and that's a model from authentic relating. And basically how that works is that, like, by understanding this model, I think it becomes clear as to what kind of conversation can create intimacy, and what kind of conversation doesn't seem to create intimacy and connection as much. So the first level is personal conversation, the first level is informational level conversation. So informational level conversation would be actually a lot of my bio that was shared. For example, I'm from Canada. If I were to share with you that I have a younger brother, that I'm in Nicaragua right now, that I'm at a residency called Momentum Collective, that those are all just informational level. It's just the facts and data. So the second level of conversation is the personal and emotional level of conversation. And that's if I were to share with you that before this call, I was feeling stressed and like excited and very much like in my head. And a part of me was not wanting to do this call right beforehand. And just because I was like so exhausted from all of these things that I was doing. This past week, I actually went to the beach for a few days to spend time in solitude, because I've been feeling pretty overwhelmed.
I was going to ask, you got a pretty good tan going there.
Yeah, we have a little bit more of a burn, I think. Yeah, just so personal it would be. And even if I were to share with you this past summer, when I was living back home during COVID, I was feeling kind of a new level of depressed and anxious and numb. And just, those are just simple things. Or maybe if I were to share with you that this upcoming, I think that's enough examples now. But anyways, personal, emotional level of conversation, that's number 2, is any emotions or opinions I have about something that was in the past or the future. So the third level of conversation is relational conversation. So that's if I were to share with you, in this moment, noticing that I'm like looking at myself a lot on the video screen and feel kind of like, self-conscious of myself and distracted by that and trying to like focus on you as well. And I feel kind of giddy in sharing that. And this sense of like really wanting to take advantage of this time on this call with you to make an impact with making a more safely connected distributed workforce, and this like worry and this like kind of panic and rushness of like, okay, how can I get the most out of me right now to share and be in pursuit of that. And anyways, that might be an example of a relational conversation. It's any kind of thoughts or emotions that I'm experiencing in this moment while in connection with you. So that's a little bit about that model. The point, the kind of the takeaway from here is that most conversation is in the informational level, and where connection happens is in the relational and the personal emotional levels of conversation. So when you think about team building and virtual team building, there's many things that most team building exercises actually still exist within the informational level of conversation. So for example, there was a team this morning that I was talking to that did some kind of virtual, some like petting zoo that they went to. It was like a virtual zoo that they did as a team, or there's also like virtual escape rooms, or like watching Netflix together or separate and like talking about the movie. Or there's lots of different examples of that. And all of that is within informational level of conversation. Like you're not actually connecting and learning about the other human on the other side of the screen. It's just talking about facts and data that don't really exist, that don't really mean anything to the soul of the other human on the other side of the screen. So the more that leaders on virtual teams can create conversation on their team that is in the relational level of conversation and the emotional level of conversation, then the more connected the team is going to feel. And social connection games does that. Go on.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with that. It makes a ton of sense. I'm just noticing too, you're so tan, or you said maybe even burn. I'm very white with this glare coming in here. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could have just relaxed on the beach a couple of days and kind of, take some nice warm beach. But yeah,
that's an example of a relational level share. That's like something that was on your mind and present here in the moment with us. And you shared that relational piece.
Yeah. This is fantastic, because this is what I was talking about, and that's why I think this is such a good answer for us. I shouldn't say it. Well, I guess I can say us, because I'm remote. I fall within that. A lot of people are working remotely right now, and I've heard a lot of people are just, they're just clinging for, man, I wish I was in the office and get, back and, see my buddies and see them in person, because we can do all we can here on Zoom. Right? Thankfully, the technology is here to where I can talk to you all the way in Nicaragua while I'm sitting here in little Springfield, Missouri. So the technology aspect is fine, and we can have fun with this. I am intentional with this conversation right now. Like, I'm 100% here. I'm not worried about anything else. I'm really interested in what it is that you have to say, and I'm paying attention. And so that in and of itself, I think, is a good thing, because it can be relational, as you said, emotional and things like that, but it can also be informational. But then the call ends and we're back to being in solace, alone again. And for some people, that's kind of hard. They're more social butterflies, right? For me, I am completely happy in this environment. I absolutely love this environment. I think it's fantastic. And Devin Craig says, "What up, guys?" What up, Devin? But yeah, so I really like the fact that you kind of broke that down through the 3 levels of communication. And I even I like to I went ahead and put the little banner up there to show people what you were talking about, because I think it's really good to be able to break that down. What I also noticed from that is you kind of presented the vulnerability or the vulnerable side of yourself. And I think being vulnerable is a huge, sometimes, often, and in your case, maybe scary or hesitant to kind of, be there and be vulnerable in that moment. I've found being vulnerable empowers you to have a voice within an organization, whether it's in person or remote. And I think both of that can be done at having a conversation like this, right? Even in a group meeting. And that's why I think it's kind of neat where you do these little social games. And I'm wondering if maybe you can give us a little bit of an example of what these authentic relating games are or mean or can do for people.
Yeah. So I'll give an example of one game. This is usually a game we would play after about 3 or 4 sessions with a team, but it just gives a general idea. It's called the empathy game. It's very simple. If you and I were in a pair, so say there's 30 people in a Zoom room, we all get broken out into pairs. You and I are paired up together. Say you're the listener and I'm the sharer. I would share for 2 minutes about something that's been on my heart lately. And I'm encouraged to share about what is actually on my heart lately and to lean into my stretch zone and be at least, what is vulnerable for me to share. And you just listen without interrupting. And then after I'm done sharing for 2 minutes, you would just respond and reflect back with as little interpretation as possible what you heard me say with no advice. And then ask, like, what else would you add or clarify to what I responded with? And then I would have another 2 minutes to share what has been on my heart or what might have become more clear through you reflecting. And then at the very end, you would share, right now I'm feeling, followed by an emotion. And then you would share, I felt you the most when, and something I think I get about you is. And those last pieces, so what's happening out of this whole thing, and then we would switch it around and I would listen to you share. But what this does is it creates a container for vulnerability, because I feel safe to be able to share because there's this container built that is actually allowing me to share what is on my heart explicitly. We're giving time for that. It's not just at the beginning to squish in at some meeting or something. I feel safe that you're not going to try and throw advice at me or whatever, because you're because you're just reflecting back what you heard me say. And then the listener at the end is responding with relational level conversation. So when you respond with, right now I'm feeling, I felt you the most when, these are just examples of ways to share back in a relational way, rather than kind of going off into these stories that people often do when they listen to someone share something on their heart. And then what's also happening with all of this is that you're practicing an emotional intelligence skill of empathetic listening. And so kind of, even this game is just an example of how, when 3 ways that research shows that teams can increase psychological safety. The first is to create safety and celebration for vulnerability. The second is for leaders to model it. And the third is for to increase emotional intelligence skills and communication skills. So what we would do before this game is have the leader actually model the sharer role. So the leader is modeling sharing something on their heart in front of the whole group, and then before they go into their teams. So it's like through this session, the leader is modeling vulnerability. Then you go off into your sessions. Everyone gets a chance to practice being vulnerable and celebrating that as a group. And then everyone gets to increase an emotional intelligence skill through it as well. And that's just an example of one game. And there's over 150 of these games. So if the future of the workforce is going to be like truly safely connected, it's social technologies like authentic relating that are the future of work and helping increase those, because they do it all.
Yeah. So this brings up a ton of thoughts. we're going through this, kind of practicing this authentic relating as we're going through this conversation right here and now, because I'm paying really close attention to you. And I love the fact that you say empathetic, because there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is something that you may not have experienced before, but you can feel that emotion. Where sympathy is maybe something that you've experienced before and you can sympathize with that person because you've experienced something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think people have different opinions on it. Just as far as I see empathy, I see it that empathy is when I can really like feel and be there with you. Like if you're sharing like something that's going on for you, like I'm willing, and that's, say if someone in your family died, or you just like experienced a breakup and you're experiencing grief, which is a very uncomfortable emotion. Grief can show up as anger or sadness or anxiety or fear or whatever it is. And I, while listening, allow myself to feel that grief with you. To feel that with you and maybe relate to you with some other time that I've felt grief. Like I can't relate to specifically your situation, but I can relate to the emotion of grief or the emotion of anger or sadness. And so empathy is, for me, is like when I'm willing to step in there. And Brene Brown has a really cool video. If you look up the difference between empathy and sympathy, if someone's curious about that, I think that explains it.
Yeah.
But sympathy is almost like not willing to get in there and like feel it with that person, but just kind of like respond from more of an intellectual level and just kind of,
that happened to me once. Yeah, now all of a sudden that takes away from the whole thing.
And empathy can happen without even using words. I can just sit with someone and I could not even say anything, but empathy is happening.
Nod your head maybe, and acknowledgement and things like that. I think it's really important. So a company that does these exercises, why would they do these? I mean, we've already talked a little bit about that, but where is this company at? And why would they say, hey, Garrett, I want you to come and do these exercises with us?
Yeah, good question. So in theory, leaders understand that all of the research, especially the most like research in the past 5 years, points towards psychological safety being the #1 most powerful indicator of highly effective teams.
Can you define psychological safety really fast?
Yeah, so psychological safety in the most simplest way is that people feel safe to be themselves.
Okay.
Feel safe to speak honestly, give critical feedback, and show up with their authentic self-expression.
Yes.
So in the simplest way. But so in theory, what I want to see is a workforce that leaders see that research, they understand it, and that's just on their list of priorities for, okay, we want to have the most effective team. We want to increase innovation as high as it can go, increase productivity as high as it can go, increase talent retention. So therefore, we need to increase psychological safety. That's in theory. But even what's actually reality, though, is that I don't think that's really happening, even though the research is pointing towards that. And I think that is the future. What's actually happening is that people are coming to me. Most of my clients right now, that especially have started over the past 8 months or so, have come because they're growing and they have hired new staff in the past year since COVID, and their new staff hasn't met anyone on the team. So all the old staffs are still kind of relatively connected with each other because they had a past relationship, but the new staff don't know anybody, and they're getting feedback that that's not a good thing. And then they're like, we have these new hires, they're not connected. Garrett, can you help us? That's kind of been the #1 reason why people are coming. But I just see that more as like a kind of when in emergency. But I want to see social connection games and then this type of technology be used more as an ongoing thing. That makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Which is also a good thing. It's also good that a leader will be able to recognize that. That's showing vulnerability on the leader's part. Knowing that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if I could also share, so one thing happened yesterday. I was talking with a leader of a team that she's having us come and do another session for their team next week. And she was just screen sharing her screen with me. They had they used some kind of internal culture feedback app with their, I can't remember what it's called, but there's lots of them available out there. And basically their score for trust in peers has gone down like 16% over the past couple weeks. And all the other scores are still good, but trust in peers has gone down. And she was like, we need to do something about this. Garrett, like, tell me, how can we increase trust in peers? And basically, and she said that she also didn't want to share. I asked her if she had shared this with her team, and she said, no, we can't share this with the team. We just need to figure out how to increase it, because if they know about it, then they might be uncomfortable knowing that their peers don't trust each other. And I told her, well, actually, what you need to do is share this feedback openly with your team and ask, like, why, just create a more of an open dialogue around what happened, what the staff think about it. But it's kind of the reason I'm sharing this is mostly that
we've got a,
how connected.
Can you say that again? We lost you there. You're back though.
Oh yeah. So what's happening is that, a lot of teams are using these different tools for tracking a number to how connected the teams feel, how trusting they feel with their leaders versus their peers. And that's really great, because that's helping now come back to that, like, aligned with research and theory. And we can just look at the score and be like, okay, what can we do to increase this number? And I think that's a really cool direction that this industry is going in.
Well, I think you just nailed on something that's really, really close to my heart. And I think a lot of people, one of the sayings here we have is lead with kindness. We also have our weekly meetings where everybody leads a different time. And if you've been watching this live with Bottleneck in the past, you've heard me say this. But I think it's worth repeating. Because I think different people listen at different times or watch at different times. I think it's really, really, really important. We have weekly meetings. Each of our team members, a different team member every week, leads that meeting. It empowers them to be involved in things like this. We also, in our meeting agendas, we're very specific, very intentional about our personal wins. We think that's incredible, an opportunity to share our personal wins. We also talk about our calls to action. But what I think is really the biggest breakthrough, next to whoever leads that meeting also does a small little 5-minute training at the end. So you can kind of get a look into what it is they do or what they enjoy doing. And it's become really cool. Sometimes people share stuff on how to, if you're feeling down, what are some things you can do to feel better? And it's just really neat what some of them come up with. They get free reign of this stuff. But the biggest impact that we talk about is missteps. And we let everybody say, sometimes they say, you know what, I did good. I don't have any missteps. Sometimes they say, you know what, I was supposed to have this done by the deadline. I didn't finish it. And you know what I found happened? Because it's kind of scary to say, you know what, I effed up, man. I just didn't do what I said I was going to do. I effed up. That can be scary, especially as a leader, right? But everybody on our team is a leader. And I think by talking about their missteps, saying, perhaps I didn't do this, I think that's leadership, because they have the power. They feel comfortable saying, you know what, I messed up. And this is what I found happen. Everybody else on the team is there like, how can I help you? You'll see in the chats or whatever, I'm here if you need to talk after, or how can I help you? Or everybody comes around and everybody helps each other out. That is amazing. So I highly encourage people to put missteps into their agendas. I think that uncovers this, that maybe that 16% drop that they have, that could have been an indicator to kind of help bring this stuff out in the open, because obviously people are afraid to say something. I don't know. It's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if I could add, I would say celebrate when people share missteps, especially as a leader, even if it's painful to hear. It's like, oh, you didn't do that thing. It was so important. It's like, find that part of you that's like genuinely celebrating that they just shared that thing, because if you can't find that part of you, that thing might not be shared in the future.
Exactly.
So it's just like, how can those missteps be shared and celebrated when they're shared, modeled and celebrated?
I'll even tell you, you know, I look to my team because they challenge me all the time, and I freaking love it. They do that. Wait,
Yeah.
Jamie, we already did that. What are you talking about? Oh, sorry, guys. You know, like, but even the biggest thing I got was from my assistant, Raina. She told me one time in a challenge that I was having, she said, Jamie, don't worry, I got your back. And that was pretty cool for my assistant to tell me that she had my back on something. It gave me a ton of confidence. It gave her a ton of confidence. And it's just a neat environment. It's the epitome of kindness towards one another. We have no org chart, hierarchy, anything like that. It's a flat line. Everybody is on that same line. And we think that that's really positive, and it's a great way to maintain empathy and continue, you know, everybody, as you said, the psychological safety, that's running rampant in this company. And my wish and hope is for other companies to receive that, to get that, and bring that together. For those companies that don't, these companies that we were talking about, I'd love to hear, like, somebody may realize, like, what are some of the triggers that a leader might, you know, be coming across, you know, maybe today or yesterday, something went through their mind, like, oh man, that sucks that that's happening, but man, F that, we're gonna drive on. Like, what are some identifiers that you know, a leader might be able to say, oh, I should probably reach out to Garrett for this? Because even if they don't believe in that number one psychological safety factor, something could trigger them to have them move to you for your assistance and realize that that is indeed the most important thing.
I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding the question.
What are some things that a leader might be experiencing over and beyond the two examples that you gave that might be able to say, you know what, it would be really good for us to play this empathy game? What are some causes? So you gave an example, someone dropped 16%, but is there anything that you're finding that's a challenge? Because a lot of people are working for the first time ever in a remote-based environment.
Yeah, okay, here's something I can share. I don't know if it's answering your question, but I think it's valuable to hear.
Okay.
And I think it's related, is this topic of withholds. So a withhold is any kind of thought or feeling that I experience and withhold from sharing with somebody that affects our quality of connection or our team performance or one of our personal growth. So if as a leader, you're noticing that people seem to be withholding, or that as a leader, you're withholding, that there's some kind of piece of feedback you have for someone, or someone kind of rubbed you the wrong way on something, or you didn't agree with something and you withheld that and just kind of went with it. Or there's some kind of, maybe it's like tightness in your belly, or your gut is kind of twisting about something. Those are all indications that there is withholding happening. And if you're withholding as a leader, it's likely that you have a withhold culture, which is different, which is the opposite of a candor culture. And if you're withholding as a leader, and I guarantee you have a team culture that is also withholding. And withholding is, it's not lying, it's just not sharing. And
people start thinking about, like, what am I doing wrong, or what if?
It's kind of invisible and covert and hard to spot. But teams that have really high psychological safety reveal their withholds. They share with each other when they have feedback, like on the spot, because that's just the level of safety they have with each other. So I'll just share a judgment with my colleague, and that's just the way that we operate at. So yeah, I would say, like, one thing you're noticing is withholding, and most leaders, 99% or more, tolerate withholding on their team. mostly because they're unaware that this term withholding even exists and what that actually is affecting their team.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. Come to think, I think we may have had withholding with one of our external assistants. And they reached out to one of our clients in confidence and said something to them where they decided not to move forward. And so we haven't been able to uncover what the challenge was. And obviously in confidence, all respect to our client there for not, telling us what that conversation maintained, but it was also a cause because none of us knew. The entire team, we were like, what happened? What did we do? Did we do something wrong? Did we say something wrong? It was something that we didn't know. And so thankfully this client approached us and let us know, but she maintained confidence with that conversation that happened. Something happened. We don't know what it was. And boy, how do we address that?
Yeah, that's an example of, it seems like it's some kind of bigger withhold. And withholds can be a lot smaller too. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to be thinking on that quite a bit. Well, so how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more? Yeah, best way, the biggest call to action that I would have from anyone that wants to get involved with me and my work and what I'm doing is come to a Social Connection Games demo. If you just look up socialarchitect.io or .xyz, we just recently changed our URL, but both work. Go to the free stuff, like free events, and come to a Social Connection Games demo. That is the best. I won't even share anything else. Come to one of our demos, experience Social Connection Games for yourself, and then you'll get it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap?
Yeah, and also just another challenge for you is take out a piece of paper and write down, think about all the relationships in your life, whether it's your people in your family, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's someone that you're crushing on, maybe it's a colleague, or just write down a list of relationships and think about what are 5 withheld feelings or withheld thoughts or whatever they are that I have in connection with these people, and pick even 1 to 3 of them and reveal them. Go show that person, hey, I want to practice revealing withholds because I want to have a closer connection with you. Can I share a withhold with you? And then just see what happens.
Oh, that's powerful. That takes some cojones. But that's what you need to do, right? You need to get over that.
As long as it's in service of connection.
Yeah.
If it's someone that I'm actually not genuinely wanting to be connected with, they don't count. It's people that you genuinely want to have a closer connection with.
That's what makes it even scarier, right? There's that
absolutely
the vulnerability there, but that's power. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And then it just kind of weaves its way into the relationship that, hey, we're a relationship that reveals our withholds. And then they'll probably, guaranteed, they have withholds with you. And then it'll be turned around. If not today, another day. But it just creates the context of them. And anyways, that's the challenge I just want to leave with people with.
Thank you so much. That's great. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Do you have just a moment while I wrap?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Hold on one quick second. I'll be right with you. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in today. I had a great conversation. I've been talking with Garrett Rokosh. We've been talking about creating human connection and psychological safety in remote work. He's a managing partner of Social Architect. You can go to socialarchitect.io to learn more. Highly recommend it. If you have a large distributed or a small distributed workforce for whatever it is, I encourage you to reach out to Garrett. There's going to be some interesting things that I think you'll find out both about your company and your organization, those people within the organization. Very, very, very powerful. And this empathy game would be an incredible exercise. I can't wait to participate. But I do want to come up with a couple things. Let you know, bottleneck.online/TV. You'll take you to our YouTube channel. Subscribe today, and you'll be able to see conversations like this that I had with Garrett, plus all of our previous conversations I think we're nearly 100 of them right now. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff on Bottleneck TV, so that'll be a lot of fun. And coming soon, we're going to be talking to the CEO of Apernio, Larry Olson. We're going to be talking about what do you mean by an achievement acceleration company? And that's coming up Tuesday, March 2nd, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Thanks again, and special hats off there to Garrett coming all the way from Nicaragua and joining us. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, create your own ripple. Have a fantastic day.